That's like all I want to do.
I'm singing, let's get down to business.
Very different. You sing
Ding,
that and
ding,
the
ding,
ding
ding,
ding. Wow. I love it. I love that this is the start. We always have some sort of like jingle or song right after our intro song.
I know. I feel like I need to be like, ra-da-da,
we need to like hear the intro song play and then like when we're recording, because I feel like that'll be like, because I hear it and I'm like, oh, it's the start.
Yeah.
But I only hear it when it's like actually out, not this part. Anyways, welcome back everybody to another episode of Polite as Fuck. Feeling polite as fuck. 10 and 10. Little life updates. Mine are silly.
I feel like you should just say all of yours. Like you can just give a life update that mentions 5 things.
Okay. Like just read all of them.
Okay.
This is gonna be fun. Okay, so my life updates. The first one is I turned 29. I feel like that's just like the biggest one that's happened recently for sure. I finished The Power by Naomi Alderman, which is a historical novel. We talked about the show on the podcast before.
So good. It
was on Amazon Prime, I think, and it's basically just it's so good. What it is about, like what we had mentioned before, it's like the end of the book, you realize like it's just like much deeper than that. So it's so good and a very quick read. For those of you guys that don't know, Spodio, if you've been here before, Spotify audiobooks, I'm coining it Spodio, has it on their like audiobooks thing, and it's pretty quick listen. I quit my other job. I don't know if you noticed.
Officially? No, I didn't.
By the time this episode comes out, it'll be official. I haven't so I have. We had like a chat. Once I have like security in the restaurant, I was able to like put feelers out on like the different things that maybe I would want to do in the long run. And so starting this like adventure job was really fun and I really, really enjoyed it. But I'm like, don't wake up excited about it. And I feel like as much as I want to, doesn't mean like adventure stuff is completely out of the picture, but I just think in this specific realm, it just was not fitting with what I wanted, and I want to make room for other stuff. I have cut back on smoking. I really wish I could say I am taking like a full-on tolerance break, but I think when you're so like dependent, and I also have thoughts on this for today's episode, but I think when you're so dependent on something, especially when you struggle with anxiety, it is really difficult to like fully cut stuff out. And I'm so proud of myself for doing dry January that I just feel like I want to continue my boundaries when it comes to utilizing other things. And so I feel like last week getting sick right before my birthday was just like an opportunity to be like, hey, you're sick, you literally can't breathe, maybe don't smoke so much, you shouldn't be taking like fucking hits of your water bong all the time, like you literally have pneumonia, at least stop. So that in itself I think is carried over into this week, and I'm proud of myself for what I've done so far. And then I gave a dog's bath, and those are my life updates. Which is it's 2 dogs, task. Like it's that's a full task. Ew.
I love when you carried Luna out in her little towel.
And their legs are just like this. It's so cute.
That was so cute. I love that.
Thanks.
Those are good updates.
Thanks.
I have a few too. Our flooring is complete. We officially have no open gaps in the floors.
No glue on the floor.
No glue. Everything looks good.
Yeah.
We can finally clean. I mean, I feel like I've been cleaning, but I'm like, finally, no one with like dirty work boots is going to be walking around this house.
Yes.
So that's exciting. It's also been raining in San Diego, and I've been loving it. I feel like we needed it, and it's been a good vibe. Although I will say, literally at 3 p.m. as I was still working today, I was like, wow, it's like 6. Like, I'm ready to
be done.
Hunker down.
Make some soup and call it a night.
Yeah, literally. Which, speaking of soup, I too have been sick, and I'm still not feeling great, but I feel way better than I did. I don't know what was going around, but sucked. Mr. Fours had a birthday. Ellie had a birthday. So I feel like I've been celebrating people that I love, and that's been really fun. And then I booked some things coming up for my friend's wedding, and my mom is also going to come down in April.
Oh, yay.
So some things to look forward to, which is exciting.
That is really exciting. It's always nice when you do that, especially when you spend a bunch of money. It's like, ooh, but then
especially when you spend a bunch of money right after you just spend a bunch of money on other things.
Yeah. But at least you know, like, you're going to have a good time and, like, good memories are coming up.
Thank goodness for a credit card is all I can say. Because I'm like, we'll pay that in March or April or something.
Yeah. Somewhere down that line. Totally. Cool. Like, nice little update. I kind of appreciated that. We have done, like, a few silly 10 and 10s, but that was nice. So what are we talking about this week?
So we're joining the buzz. I've just been seeing it on podcasts. I don't know if it's talked about much more outside of that, but this let them theory, which I think was coined by Mel Robbins. And honestly, I haven't listened to her podcast. I haven't read her book. I've just heard it mentioned on a few podcasts, and my understanding of it is if someone's doing something that isn't harming them and isn't harming you, then just let them do whatever it is that they want to do. And one of the examples that, I don't know if this was Mel or one of the girls in the podcast I was listening to, but she gave this example of like a parent and their son or daughter, whatever, like is getting ready for the prom, and you're like checking, like, have you done this? Have you done that? Did you make reservations for the restaurant? And they're like, no, we didn't make reservations. We're just going to show up. And then you're like, oh, like you should have made reservations. Now I'm going to make the reservation for you. And instead just being like, okay, yeah, like see how that goes for you. Like it's not going to harm you or them if they show up and can't get in the restaurant. And maybe it will turn into a fun memory for them of the time they like ate takeout in their car at prom, or it's going to be a lesson for them or whatever it is. But I think I really related to that, not because I'm a mom, but I think being an older sibling, that was the first thing it triggered in my mind, is this like, let me just do everything for you because then I know it will be done and you won't have these issues and I can save you so much trouble and blah, blah, blah. And so then I was like, maybe we should talk about things we like to be in control of or like have a hard time letting go, because I struggle with this, I feel like, in a lot of areas of my life.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think my like overall arching theme for this year, one of my goals is to let go, like stop caring about what people think, blah, blah, basically embody this principle. And so I kind of heard it been going around as well. And I love Girls Gotta Eat podcast, and they had her on their most recent episode. And that was like my first time like really listening to this. But I mean, this term isn't completely new. I mean, I think that she's done a really brilliant way of kind of like putting like her insight into it, which I appreciated. And like there's a few points that she had brought up in Girls Gotta Eat podcast that we can talk about. But I mean, just a new way to say things, and I just like how short it is of like let them, like that is something that I can say in my mind, but and like something that I can remember. But I think that this is something that's very important to me because, like I said, it's something that I'm trying to like really, really work on. Like I'm really trying to rewire my brain because I don't let them, like, or whatever. You know, like I have so much trouble with this. And I think it looks a little bit different for me than maybe some of the examples that you can, like she's using. I think some of this, especially when on the Girls Gotta Eat podcast, because they're like relationship and sex focused, it was more towards like dating and things like that. But yeah, when you said the control piece and you said like being an older sibling, I started thinking about like how I grew up, how my parents raised me, and like their like let them theory towards us maybe, and just how all of that has really affected me, and also just like is important. It's just worth a conversation. So yeah.
Well, it's, I guess, like, you bringing up how your parents raised you, it made me think, I feel like it was drilled in me, and maybe it was, like, my own personality, being the oldest sibling, whatever it was, of, like, did you do all of these things? Like, did you check this? Did you do this? Have you tried this? And those questions were always asked about stuff, and so I feel like I was really pushed to, like, figure it out. And then with my siblings, I'm like, oh, I know how to do this. Let me do this and do that and do this. Or like if I'm asking them those questions, then I'm like, they say yes or no. I'm like, okay, I'll do it for you. Which I feel like is different than how my parents pushed me of like, have you done this? Okay, go figure it out type thing.
That's so interesting. So I grew up, and we both grew up in a military family, but I moved around a lot. So I already have a thing about control. And I think that stems from the fact that like there was no control of like my like location. But I think because of that, my parents did not have like the let them theory towards me at all. I think that, not that they were controlling, but I think that they already knew so much of my life lacked control. So they wanted to like, hey, okay, you have swimming. We'll figure everything else out. We will make sure that you don't have to pay a single bill. You don't have to take, like, I mean, I had chores around the house, but when it came towards like more adult stuff growing up, more like 17, 18, like into college, like my mom was the one that like made sure I had all of my deadlines done, made sure like my college essays were done, like made sure that I once got a ticket and my mom did the freaking wow. like everything was done for me, just as long like the only thing I remember is like, if you're gonna swim, you can swim, and that's like your job. Everything else would be like taken care of. And now I see that there's this huge gap between the way that I think me and my other sister, like my cousin and I, were raised versus how my two younger siblings were raised, because I think that my parents did the opposite of let them to me and Anais, and then like did the let them but to the most extreme with Sophia and Isabella, almost like left the parenting realm altogether. And so just hearing like certain things and being like a friend now to my siblings, it's really difficult because they really did have to figure so much of their stuff out, but they have this kind of almost like blasé attitude about it. And to me, I'm like, aren't you freaking out? Because I'm freaking out for you, because I recently had to learn all of these things pretty recently, like once I left college, basically everything was taken care of. It wasn't really, and then I left for Australia and I had that job and I was like taken care of. And I think even then that was a little bit of a shock for me on growing up. And then being like, mid 20s, I was like, oh no, I need to figure out how to pay for my phone, or what does like gas and electric even mean? Like all of these things that I think would have been helpful younger. My siblings got like way too much of it. So I think there's just this like missing piece that I always like, me and Anais always are like, can you believe Sophia and Isabella, blah, 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 this. And it's just, I think that the let them theory and listening to this has made me realize like, oh, the parenting style and how we grow up has so much to do with them, that my parents were really like, oh, if they want to do that, go ahead.
Yeah.
Like, let them. Whereas, like, for me and Anais, it was like, I'll do it for you when it comes to a lot of different things. So that's kind of how I see it when it comes to, like, parenting.
Yeah.
That's my, like, side tangent when it comes to the difference between, like, my siblings and I. But, yeah, the piece of being in control and being the oldest sibling, I will always, like, feel like I have something to say to them and like need to give my 2 cents.
Yeah, like become a parent. And they're like, I don't want you to be my parent right now.
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
And it's hard.
I know. And I feel like it's translated into, this was like the biggest lesson I had to learn with work, with like setting boundaries with work, was letting people just like do their job. And not that I feel like it came from a place of like wanting to ease the burden on other people, and also like, okay. Oh, yeah, like wanting to ease their burden, but also feeling like if I do it, it'll be done right.
Yeah.
And so I'm just going to do it. And I think that example earlier that I gave also sticks with me for the reason of like, maybe they need this to happen so that they learn something. I think about my own life and like the rules that I had from the church and my parents or whatever. And I feel like this is every teenager. You are told not to do something, so you want to do something to understand like why you shouldn't do something. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's similar, not even in just like things you shouldn't do, but just like, why do we do something a certain way at work? Well, because I did it this way, and it took 10 times longer. And sometimes people just need to try taking the long path to learn or understand why you do something differently. Like waiting at a restaurant for 3 hours because you didn't make a reservation. It's like you kind of have to go through that experience to appreciate or understand why you do something differently.
Yeah. Do you think that you were, I mean, it's kind of hard because of the way that you grew up, but do you think that you were like a tester, like a kid that always wanted to like test things or like be outside the box or like push your limits or like because I thought that I was this like rebellious kid. I was not. I was not even in the slightest. I think I really, really wanted to be, but I was your typical first kid. I wanted to do everything by the rule book. I wanted to do it right. Even like the things like when I remember when I first smoked, it was on the military base with Anais. Oh, well, one of the first times that I smoked, it was on the military base, and I was like shitting bricks. Like, oh my God, they're gonna come. We used an apple. I was like, they're gonna find it and they're gonna test it and they're gonna bring it back and there's gonna be a knock on the door, like freaking out. And then I think back to the way that like my siblings were, and like they were rebellious. They really did test the limits. And I think the reason what makes me think of this is I didn't really, more specifically, like rather than the adult behavior that I was talking about before when it comes to like responsibilities, I mean more so of just like learning and being a kid. My parents didn't really need to do like the let them theory with me because like there wasn't really a thing for me to do because I wasn't as fearful. And I think even now when I think of the let them theory in my own life, it's only because of like my lack of control and things like that. Whereas with my siblings, I don't know, they may agree or disagree, but I think that my parents adapted like fully the let them theory because they were testing all boundaries and really like going outside, you know what I mean, being way more rebellious. So do you agree with that?
No, you saying that makes me realize that the reason I have, well, maybe not the reason, but a big reason I have a hard time with control is because I think I want things to be done right. Because I feel like, not saying like
because I do it right.
because it's like I stick to the rules. I follow the guidelines. Totally. I do what needs to be done. And that doesn't mean, I think too, this is a big thing. Happened the other day, hanging photos. I asked Mr. Forrest to help me, and then he wanted to do it a certain way, and then suddenly, because I would have done it differently, his way is wrong. Mm-hmm. It wasn't wrong. It was just different. Mm-hmm. But my need for control, I'm like, no, we do it this way. We measure it this way. You don't need to do those screws. You need to do the nails with the hook. And it's like, For what? Why
Like,
can't I just let him do it?
Yep. Yes.
But it's like I think it is that I wasn't rebellious. I was like wanting, maybe testing the boundaries within the guard rails I was given.
Yes.
But I wasn't like going outside of that. I wasn't thinking beyond those.
No, I had no, I like I said, I thought I was rebellious for what I did. And I think looking back, I'm like, oh my dear God. I was, even when I was doing crazy shit, it wasn't even that crazy.
Yeah.
Like, it was not that bad. So, yeah, that's very interesting and very, yeah.
No, it actually makes a lot more sense in my brain too. And I don't know if everyone's like, yeah, that's why you want to be in control, because you think you can do something right. But that's what's making sense in my mind right now. Mm-hmm. And even a really big thing I've had to work through, and I'm still working through, with like just accepting people as they are and not thinking like, oh, I can fix them or I can change them. And not even in the sense of like the cliche, like, oh, I'm gonna fix him, you know, like relationship. Even with friends, like I'll catch myself being like, oh, I'll do it this way for them, or like I'll, you know, like show them whatever, or I'm thinking in my mind like, I want to do it the way that you're doing it. And it's like, why am I wasting this brain power or energy? Because I love my friend and they are the way that they are, and I'm just going to let them be that way. Like, I'm literally looking at pictures of people on our wall. And I'm like, I can think of a time I did it with her and with him, and like that like judgment in my brain, I guess.
Yes. Oh man, you just made me think of something. Hold on. I don't know if this has anything to do with anything, but it did just happen. Like, it just came into my brain, so I want to share it, obviously. You saying that about just like friendships and, oh, well, I can do it this way, and like the let them. I think a part of me too is just going back to the parent thing, and like one example is, I think my dad is is way more on the controlling piece and has that control, whereas my mom is a little bit more relaxed. And there's one example that has popped up so many times in conversations in my life on the podcast is my degree in social work. And I think that in this moment, this is where the let them theory, and Mel Robbins does talk about this a little bit on her like website. There's like a 40-minute podcast, and one of the bullet points is like, when does the let them not work? And I think it works until it doesn't. And it's just always finding that fine line of communication at the end of the day. But this is a big piece that I wish someone told me, and something that I can't let go of because I need that control, and it's something that I need to work through. But when I look in the past, when it comes to my degree and my career, I get frustrated because it's like, why didn't someone tell me what to do so that I could, that way it equals more success, rather than like the let them, like, okay, she wants to go through this degree, like let them, she'll figure it out. It's like, I feel like I've wished that I had someone who took control, maybe so that I could, whatever the reason is, blame them if things went wrong. Like, now I have no one else to blame but myself. I was in control, but also, so that someone else was in control of my life. And I think that even just thinking of the let them theory, it's like, I really did have to go through that. Like, everything happens for a reason, and that was learning. And I think it's still kind of going down that path. And of course, like, what parent is going to be like, well, I'm grateful that my parents weren't like, no, don't do that degree, do this one instead. Yeah. So anyway, that point just made me think of that I wanted to share. But to your like friendship piece, when it comes to the let them theory, this is exactly what I thought of when I was listening to the Girls Gotta Eat podcast with the let them, is when she was explaining this, all I could think about is when it comes to friendships and friends and things like that. And just a quick like background on whatever day, before I'd listened to this episode, I was having some anxiety when it comes to friends. I don't know why sometimes this happens. I don't know why my anxiety comes out in random times. I think we were just talking about like the not smoking piece. I think that plays like a big part into it. But something had happened where I had sent like multiple messages to different people, like inviting them to things. And also we were just kind of having like not like a deep conversation, but some sort of conversation, and then no one responded. And I was like in my head about it because I was like already anxious, like already bringing so many of my own like baggage into that, and like really reading into something that like did not even need to be read into at all. And so all this had happened the night before, and then I woke up and I was in the gym and I was listening to this episode and hearing her say that, like put it into perspective of like, if they don't want to respond, let them. If they don't blah blah blah, like it's how, that is just how I was interpreting it. And I think it's because right now a big priority in my life is friendships and cultivating friendships, continuing like learning how to be a friend, yada yada. And the big thing is like, I just want to be in control. I want everyone, I care so much about what people think that I just want everyone to be happy. And when my anxiety is at its like pinnacle or at its peak, and then all of a sudden like people aren't responding, it's like my mind then slips into this like, oh my God, well, there goes all my friends and no one cares about me and I have nothing and like just all the way done. It's like at that peak of anxiety of like to introduce the let them theory really does like let go of all of this like you were just saying, like just brain like power that just brain space that like just can be put elsewhere. And that does alleviate some anxieties. Way easier said than done, but I just, in that moment of listening to her speak about her book and this theory, I was like, whoa, like friendship, like had that moment of like, wow.
It's kind of crazy how you can like literally be totally fine and then you're thinking about what you would do differently if you were someone else, or how you're thinking someone else is thinking, or whatever it is, and then you're like making yourself angry or upset or like any emotion than what you were just feeling, instead of like being like recognizing, like in this example they need to text back, and then the thought of like, all right, like I'll let them text back whenever they want, and then continuing on with your day, instead of like, and I'm fully guilty of it, I can think of a bajillion examples, as I said, like of thinking a thought about someone or how you do something differently, and then spiraling in that thought, and then suddenly you're like angry at the person, or God, like, and they're literally like, hey, or whatever, and you're like mad at them. Totally. And they're like, I don't even know what's going on.
Totally. I had to go back to, instead of using the let them theory, which would have been perfect in that example, what I did to calm my mind in the moment was not even really calming my mind, is they weren't responding. And even in my delirious pinnacle anxiety moment, I was like, I know people don't respond right away or open it or don't do it. I know that I do that. So then I'm going through all of the messages to see when and what conversation and how deep the conversation was. Did I not respond or did they not respond? And like, how did it come? Like, and replaying the situation and those over and over and over again, when literally the same outcome could have happened 20 minutes earlier if I had incorporated this theory.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
What? Like, I'm not even kidding. I did that. I was like scrolling all the way. What a waste of time.
Oh, I do it too. I do it too. It's crazy.
Crazy.
I'm curious what some of the examples are, because I listened to some clips from the Girls Guide episode, but what were some of the like relationship ones that they were talking about? Do you remember?
I think it was kind of, I can't remember any specific examples, but I think like the main ones are, okay, he's not putting in any effort, let him. Like, that is like actions speak louder than words. Same when it comes to like, well, he's not texting me as much as I want. Okay, let that, like, anything really that you can think of. But I just thought, you know, like, it is like, even listening to it, I was like, well, duh. But then I was like, well, I kind of have to keep listening because I'm still really not incorporating it in my life. And I think it just has, and every example that they gave equaled like what your response to that was, and how kind of exactly what we were talking about of like that control piece is you can't control them. And if this person that you are dating or trying to date or whatever, if all of these, she was saying like, if 80% of who this person is fits you, you know, even like, you know, relationships aren't perfect. And I really hope that I'm not like butchering what they were saying, but my interpretation of it is like, if 80% of it is like they share your same values, they share their same things, but there's just like a little thing that is off here and there, then that's just communication. That's just growth. That's just relationships. But I think if you're really looking for someone and you know what your boundaries are and you know what you're interested in, and they're not really reciprocating it, or it would be better if, and you're like constantly finding yourself having these like internal conversations with yourself about the person, and it's like, oh well, if only they would, and this isn't the greatest example, but it's like, if only they would like text me more, like call me more. And I think her thing is, well, let them, because their actions will speak louder than words. And if that doesn't fit into your boundary and what you're looking for, then that itself is an answer to whatever it is that you're, you know, maybe questioning, and whether or not that fits. Yeah. Which I found that to be very helpful. It's just, again, way easier said than done. Yeah. And I think, you know, in that example, in that instance, for me, when it comes to like relationship and dating, is one, do you know what you want? Yeah. And what, you know, what does that look like? And then the second thing is like, does your anxiety about whatever it is that they're doing, where you need to incorporate the let them theory, say more about you and what you need rather than like to them as a person? And I think, I don't know if it's just because I'm in my like, you know, self-reflection era, but it is so true. And when it comes in, this may be a little different than the let them theory, but like when it comes to dating and, or even like friendships, is like, is your anxiety or whatever it is that you're kind of going through with this person a friction or something that's causing something? Yeah. Say more about what you're going through and what you need to do, like kind of just like flip it around on you, because you can't control them. Let them. And then what I like that Mel Robbins says is, okay, then let me, where I am in control of my emotions. And something that she says is, there's like 3 points. I wrote them down because I always forget. To keep, she said, there, like when it comes to like the let me part of the let them theory, there are 3 points to keep in mind. The first one is what I think about this. So whatever it is, whatever is happening, what I think about this, what I do or don't do, and what I do as a response to how I feel. So it's just, again, you flip it. So let them do whatever it is they're doing. Goodbye, adios. Let me, like, really sit down and feel how I'm feeling and reflect on that, and then go from there. And what I like about this too, and her, like, what kind of brought this up is one of the girls gave an example of somebody on a FaceTime call in the airport, max volume, no earbuds, like saying like, and she was just like, what the fuck? Like, already, you know, annoyed because traveling is already a lot. And then on top of it, this one thing is now causing me so much anger and anxiety. You know, you can just feel that like uncomfortability. And in this example, she did say that she had turned to that person and said like, oh, hey, like your thing is really loud. And the person thankfully was like, oh my gosh, blah, 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 so sorry. I like put in my headphones or did whatever it is that they were doing. But I was like, oh, that's a good example because it has nothing to do with friends or relationships. It's like you know, in real life things. And it really is like you are in control of how you feel. And then I put myself in that experience. And I don't know if I would have the balls to politely say to a stranger, hey, can you turn that down? I really don't think so. Like, I think that my anger and my anxiety would make me be a bitch.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a perfect time to reflect. Like, what did I say? What I think about this. Oh, well, I think I'm really fucking annoyed right now because you don't have your fucking headphones in and it's loud.
Yeah.
And then what I do or don't do, it's like, okay, well, Ellie, you know that you are not going to be kind to this person if you go up and talk to them. So what I am going to do is I'm going to, what's going to help here? Like, I know that that's not going to be good. I'm going to go walk away. I'm going to go find somewhere else. And then what I do as a response to how I feel. So it's like, okay, well, now I feel anxious in this moment and I'm responding by walking away. Like, does this help the situation? Am I happy? And I'm also like, I am not, and I'm like kind of rewording what she said, but like, I am not the president of the airport. Like, I cannot control, you know what I mean? Like, I can only control myself and my actions. And again, a lot of this seems so like, well, duh, but it's like, well, it's not well, duh, because we all are really struggling with it.
Yeah.
So I really appreciated that, but it's so true. Like, let them, but then let me.
Yeah, you made me think of so many things. The first one was that example that you gave in the airport of times where stuff like that's happened and I'm getting really irritated and I'm getting upset and I'm like, this person's so annoying and I'm thinking mean things about them. And then this doesn't happen often, but when it does, when I catch myself and then I'm like, but why? To me, like, why is that annoying me so much? Why am I like literally being so mean to them in my head? Because how is that impacting me at all? And then second part of that also makes me think, I think about this all the time. I don't know if you remember, it's probably not even like a lecture that we got, but just more of like a thing that's talked about in swimming a lot is like the controllables. Like what you can and can't control about your race. Like, you can control how often you train. You can control the diet. You can control like your water intake, all those things. But like, you can't control if it's going to be stormy that day and it's outdoor meet, or if you dive in and your goggles fall off, like things like that. I literally always am thinking about like, is this like my goggles falling off, or is this something like I can do to like, you know, make the situation better? Like, what am I in control of in here? And so I think about like that example. It's like, I'm probably not going to go talk to this person that's being loud, but what can I control? I can go sit somewhere else. But I literally think about it in that frame of reference, like, of what the controllables are, because I feel like it dumbs them down into something as simple as like moving your seat or like putting your own headphones in or something. And then you're not spending all that time being like, this person's so annoying, I hate them. Now it's like, all right, that's solved, moving on to the next thing.
Yeah. I love the but why. It's I like this like too, where the let them, but why, let me. It's just a quick like little thing. So I like that you have that. Also, been swimming my whole life and I've never thought that. Like, really? When it comes to like the like, is this my goggles falling off, or is this something that I like? That is, I am blown. I have no words to that. I am blown away. How have I never? Yeah, that's all I have to say about that one. But then the other thing that I had to say, which I'm kind of pulling from our last episode, I think, where you had talked about, it was in our 10 and 10 actually, where you had talked about like, when you love someone, why do we, what was it?
Why are we like the
meanest to them? Right. Okay, so thinking about the airport situation that we were just talking about, I've recently kind of been thinking a lot about, okay, now I'm being less reactive, or trying to be less reactive, but I now have a tendency, and almost have always, but I'm really leaning onto it, is this codependency of like needing to talk it out right away. So like, okay, airport situation, person is pissing me off, anxiety is high. Yeah, I walk away, but but for some reason, like, I'm still seeing red. I am like not able to regulate my emotions. I'm like, my heart rate is still up. I'm having a lot of like issues. Crazy that this one person is creating all of this, but crazier things have happened. All of these things, the first thing that I'm like doing is calling on Elise, saying like, I need to talk this out. I need to go through this.
Yeah.
And it just made me think like, recently I've been like, oh man, I've been doing better with this because I've been dealing with my anxiety and I've really just, I've been doing good. I haven't been smoking. And then it's like a very anxiety inducing thing happened last night. And like, I didn't have all of my things that I usually use and still not able to regulate. Like, I then have to like call all of these people and like relive the story like as animatedly as it happened and like go through all of the steps and now put like all of my, and maybe I'm interpreting this wrong, but like sometimes I feel like I then put all of my, I trauma dump onto these people because of my anxiety and my inability to like regulate my emotions in the moment. So this isn't, I'm not coming to any like full conclusion or anything. This isn't like a, oh, hey, yeah,
and
I
so
figured
now.
it out. This is like, this is where I'm at. And it just made me think, just having this conversation now of like, oh shit, like, why do we do that? I know this is a different conversation, but when it comes to like the let them theory and all of these situations that cause anxiety, it's like, yeah, I'm in control of myself, but then I do still have this need to like go dump all of my problems onto somebody that I love in order to like receive validation or receive like a, oh yeah, you're right, that person is crazy, you know, like, you know what I mean? Like, they should turn off their phones.
I do get what you're saying. I think though you're very hard on yourself, and I don't feel like you dump trauma in the way that's like, now you need to fix this. I feel like you talk it out, and it's like, that's how you connect with people, is by sharing about your life. And I'm really bad at that. So then I'm like, oh, by the way, I did this thing. And you're like, what the fuck? Like, whereas you, like, I'm like, oh, I feel like I know what's going on. Like, you told me about your night, and you told me like things that happened. And I started listening to this episode of Diary of a CEO. And I told Ellie about a clip from it the other day. It's this guy who's talking about the psychology of why people don't like you, what traits people are attracted to, blah, blah, blah. And it's a very clickbaity title. But one of the clips that like got me onto the episode was he was talking about, and this is not related, he was talking about filler words and how he like started putting silences where he would have filler words, and I feel like we're both actively doing it in this episode.
I
like,
really am trying.
Thinking about it, but I also am like, feel like we're really getting our thoughts across.
I know. I'm like, you know how many great words I've used? Validation, regulation. I'm like, it's all downhill from here.
Anyway, now that we've tooted our horn, we're gonna go back to not being able to speak.
Oh man.
So I started listening to the episode this morning, and he's talking about like the reason that you think, when you think about someone where they walk into the room and everyone's like magnetized towards them, or they just like are easily likable, it's probably because they've told you something about them that you can like relate to. They were vulnerable with you. They were like, you mentioned something and they shared a story that allowed you to be open about something that you like. And that's how you build connection with people. And that's how a lot of times there's a difference between like, I just meet you and you tell me like your dad died and some crazy thing, and I'm like, wow, like I have no like connection with you. But it's like, if I tell you I'm from like Tahoe and you tell me about some ski trip that you took there with your family, and like you relate in some way and you share something, like that's how you like grow with someone, and people will want to talk to you more. And I feel like you do that. I don't think that you're like saying some crazy thing that it's like, and now I need you to like get me out of $100,000 of debt, and I'm like, what? I don't know how to help you.
That'd be crazy.
Like, and even then it's like, if not saying that this is what's happening now. Like, I don't know. Like, I try to think of something extreme that I'd be like, I can't help you. Like, I don't know what to do. Even if you're like, oh my gosh, like, I need to pay this off, I'd be like, wow, that's crazy. Because you don't say it in a way of like, fix my problems.
That's true.
But I get where you're going with, like, sometimes, like, if you're having a bad day or a bad time and then you need to go tell someone and now they're like, well, now I'm having a bad time because you just, like, told me something. Yeah. I think there's a difference there. Okay, like, thinking about it more of, like, is this really gonna help someone's day if I'm, like, now complaining about the thing that I just fixed for myself? Mm-hmm. You know? Yeah. It's not like a crazy story that someone was talking loud on their phone, but now I'm, like, complaining about it and the problem's already solved type of thing.
Yeah. It's just, like, learning, but I do think I had that thought, and, I mean, it was really, the let them part of this has not been new to me. I think it's just been called a lot of different things. But what I appreciated about her breakdown is just the reminder of, like, okay, now flip it and, like, what are you gonna do? Like, you are in control as a person, you know, in your body. What are you gonna do about that? And how are you gonna react? Now, there are multiple moments in my life that I have felt in control and have used that control to then spiral out of control in a situation or make it worse or use it for evil or something like that. Whereas I think now when it comes to moments where I do need to use the let them theory, it's just a good reminder to be like, let them do it. How am I going to respond to that? And I think even for me, take it deeper into what I was just talking about of, like, okay, how I respond and what my emotional level is and how, you know, if my automatic response is to go reach out to someone or tell them or have them walk through, it's like, okay, we'll take a few deep breaths. Is this something that, like, needs to be decompressed in this moment, or can we, like, laugh about it of, like, this moment that it just happened? I think we, like, need to meet in the middle with our things. Like, you saying all that stuff of, like, oh, Ellie, you do share. I was thinking of this one thing that was, like, I will never be a secret girly. Like, I will never be like, oh, like, I wonder what's going on in her life. Like, oh, what's up with her? Nah. I tell everyone everything all the time. There's nothing secret going on here. Like,
well, and we have a podcast, so that's true. Literally tell everyone.
No, well, that's another side note. I was at work the other day and we were just, like, talking about random stuff and brought up the Miami trip, and the guy goes, yeah, and you fucked a cop. And I was like, what? How do you know that? He was like, you told me. And I was like, oh. Yeah, okay. Like, god damn, Ellie, you really have no secrets. Like, you tell everyone everything. I'm like, I'm pretty sure you walked into the restaurant and told everyone when you came back. I was like, oh. I don't think me, Ellie? Okay.
Crazy.
Oh,
that's
gosh.
Funny.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm having so many good takeaways from this conversation because I feel like I was already feeling that I need to implement this more, and now I feel like my mindset has shifted a little bit of, like, yeah, let them, but also if I'm feeling like I need to be in control of something so bad, maybe I should work on being in control of myself. Totally. Yeah. Instead of, like, a lot of things things and people I can't control. Yep. Like, why? And then I'm angry, and then there's, like, things that I could be doing that I'm like, oh, I can't do that.
I think I have this thing where I am, like, 1,000 steps ahead. Like, I plan my response to someone else's response to my response that hasn't even happened yet. Yeah. And so it's like, just take, like, a breath. And, like, those things haven't even, you're anticipating stress that hasn't even happened. And, like, feeling like I'm projecting, but, like, feeling like you need to respond to some sort of something, or like, oh, let them, where it's like, that hasn't even happened yet.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh,
Or
I just need to reel it in.
It actually hasn't happened at all.
At all.
Literally the other day, on Monday, I was very sick. And I was like, I'm not going to work today. And then I saw a message come up on my phone. And Ellie saw me. I like angrily stormed in and like got on my computer. I reread the message the next day. And I had like misread it because I was sick and laying in my bed. And I got myself so worked up. I was so angry. I was like, this guy's an idiot. Like, why doesn't he listen? And then I reread the message and I was like, I'm an idiot.
I mean, how often does that happen though? Like, I can tell you almost 99.9% of the time of a moment that causes so much anxiety where I'm like, I use this expression of like, I see red, but I really don't have any other way to like put it. Like, I literally, like, I think right here, like, the red is coming in, or get so angry or feel my feelings so big about a situation where the let them theory would fit perfectly.
Yeah.
Only for less than 24 hours to pass, and I look back and I'm like, I was such a crazy bitch. Like, I'm like, that happens almost every time. Like, I've made it such a big deal for literally nothing.
Yeah.
When I could have just been like, let them.
Yeah. We're like, all right, they're going to do that. It's not impacting me.
Yep.
It's not hurting me that's what they're doing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or just, even like I said, flipping it on myself. How am I reacting to the situation?
Yeah.
Even if whatever situation calls for where the let them theory doesn't fit, flip it and say, let me be in control for a second. And how am I going to overcome this? And most of the time, the acting crazy and seeing red and having that emotion take over leads to me being embarrassed of myself.
Yep, the same. I can relate.
Yeah, lots of takeaways.
Yeah, I'm feeling like so invigorated of like, I'm gonna change my life right now.
Yeah. I mean,
we'll see how it goes.
I think, this is totally out of what we were talking about, but just another reason of why I just love the podcast is like,
yeah, same.
Take away, like, it was an important conversation, but I also, like, we live lives and we had a whole day before this, and yeah, it's like hard to find time to sit down, and now I'm like, oh my god, I feel so much better.
So much better. I literally had a headache coming into this.
Yeah.
That's why I was like, maybe we could record tomorrow. Not that I was like, I can do it. And then now I'm like, I feel fine.
Totally, yeah. And my anxiety level, this was my self-regulation.
Yay!
Yay! Let us.
Let us. Hope you guys are all self-regulated now. Everyone's feeling good.
Yes.
I'm just gonna let everyone do whatever they want.
Yes.
I won't even get into politics, but I'm just like, that's honestly, I'm like, I have no control in this.
Yep.
So just gonna let it happen. But one thing you have control over is who you follow on social media.
Yep.
And who you subscribe to. If you listen to the podcast, just give us a follow so that we show that we're growing.
Yeah.
Give us 5 stars. Message us. Let us know how you're feeling, what you're thinking. If you have feedback, ideas, we are all ears. Guests or topics, please let us know.
Definitely.
Otherwise, Polite as Spoke Podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll see you next week. Bye.